Thank you all. Justice Chelameshwar has promised me that he would make some comments in Malayalam because in his 18 months stint in Kerala High Court, he had picked up so many abuses, so he can easily understand the nuances of Malayalam, though may not be the straight way of Malayalam.
I think Mr. Brittas is misrepresenting. He asked me whether I picked up some Malayalam. I said, I can't speak. Then he asked me, can you understand? If somebody abuses me, I understand.
Now, the first thing which we learn,
Broadly, I can't.
the first thing which we learn or which we teach others, Gopalji, abuses, right?
I have one advantage. I know a bit of Tamil. I studied in Madras University. There was somebody who was acquainted with Tamil, Malayalam may not be that difficult to follow.
Thank you very much. I hope that this is a meaningful session. These are times when judges look up to courts instead of the constitution. Instead of giving a verdict or a judgment, these are times when judges think that it is their bounden responsibility to bring in a solution which shouldn't be the work of the judge. That's what I understand. These are times when there's a raging debate, of course triggered by my dear friend Mr. Mohan Gopal, whether you have constitutional judges or theocratic judges. These are times when what should be the distance between the executive and the judges. So this is a time when the general public as such discuss about judicial. And naturally we have the most deserving person on the dais, Mr. Chelameshwar. As it was shown here, the dissent man, he used to dissent. And he's the one person who said that after retirement, he doesn't want any cosy job from the part of the executive. Whereas all his colleagues ran for such offices. Many offices, right. There are exceptions, of course. And I could see a little bit of contradiction, Justice Chelameshwar, because me having a background of a journalist, I always look at what should be the contradictory part of a person. Mr. Chelameshwar was one person who said that there is an imperative of having a national commission for judicial appointment. Nevertheless, he was the one person who was obviously harping about keeping judiciary quite away from the executive. And if the judiciary succumbs to executive, that's the end of democracy. That is what he said. So I would naturally start this session with the so-called first line which I made. This is the difficult times that we are passing through when judges look up to courts.
See, what you perceived as a contradiction, I never said in the judgment, in the NJSC judgment, that the collegium system must go. That was not part of that was not an issue before the court. The collegium, in a modified version of the collegium as created by the constitutional amendment, whether it is constitutionally a valid amendment or not was the limited question before the court. What was this NJSC ultimately? Before we go to the question, what is this NJSC? What is this collegium? By virtue of a judgment of the Supreme Court in 1993. In certain matters, that is like the appointment of judges to the High Courts or the Supreme Court, or transfer of judges from one High Court to another High Court. In these matters, though the text of the Constitution required, the Government of India should consult the Chief Justice. The word Chief Justice was interpreted by the 1993 judgment to say, Chief Justice not as an individual, the practice of the court has been Democratic practices, in fact, a famous American jurist, Lawrence Tribe, makes a comment somewhere that, pardon me if I make a mistake in the narration, long time back I read it, I'm aging. He said, Constitution is an intentionally incomplete and deliberately open-textured document for the participatory evolution of democratic practices. Now, over a period of some 40 years from 1950 to 1993, the judgment came. Every successive chief justice, they were all nice gentlemen at least, without a judgment, they were necessarily consulting their colleagues in the court, saying, look here, Mr. Mohan Gopal's name is being proposed for elevation to the Supreme Court. I'm just taking names so that I don't original names. So and so's name is being considered. What do you think of him? Because they believed 4 heads are better than 1 head. The collective wisdom of the court is necessary to be used for these purposes. Now, at some stage in the evolution, there were phases when government started bulldozing things, even without consulting the chief justice. Appointments came to be made. A few appointments. I don't want to go into the details. Professor Gopal knows, quite a few of us know. There used to be a joke among some of us when we were youngsters and young lawyers and young judges. There were 2-3 of the judges who came to the Supreme Court. On the light tribune, we used to say, one fine morning they went to the Chief Justice and said, hello Chief, we have been appointed, when are you swearing us? Because the Chief Justice was not consulted at all. Now, just to get over this situation, the collegium system was, the judgment came into existence. The idea being to create a more structured, rational process that people don't, the government don't make appointments to their whims and fancies. Some kind of a rational process is required. In fact, if somebody remembers that judgment as a Verma quote, the idea is not the winner takes all. The idea is to identify the best person for the job. Best in various, considered from the various angles, knowledge, commitment to the system, so on and so forth. Now, in practice over a period of time, the collegium system, human beings, ultimately, judges are also human beings. Power wherever it is, irrespective of the name, irrespective of the nature of the institution, the politics, judiciary, political parties, BJP, communists, whatever it is. Human beings are human beings, ultimately they're all human beings. And they have their own, human nature has its own problems. Power necessarily creates various temptations and
power corrupts, absolute power corrupts.
The old saying, old Acton saying, power corrupts. So naturally, certain wrong things happen over a period of time. Everybody was talking about it.
But sir, can I just interrupt you for a while? Looking back, you're the one judge who dissented with that majority judgment. But seeing things around you now, seeing the character of the executive now, do you think that giving any role to the executive would do good to the independence of judiciary? I'm asking a very blunt question.
Mr. Brittas, I wrote in the judgment, I still stand by it. I can't understand that when we are talking about a constitutional structure, to tell the country or people or those who are running the country that the elected governments have no say whatsoever in the matter of the appointment of the judges of High Court or Supreme Court. But I don't think it has anything to do with democracy. Now, if the elected governments, for example, look at the American system, examples. There the president nominates. The president has absolute discretion to nominate anybody, but then that nomination is subject to the scrutiny of the Senate. There is a committee.
Yeah, ratification. Ratification.
Literally, the nominee is stripped bare in the committee proceedings. His background, personal, professional, his commitments, his political, everything is examined. That's a very healthy way of some system. Every country need not follow the same system. So every country devises its own system of choosing judges. But to tell the government would have no say whatever. We are willing to trust the government, elected government. Tomorrow, Mr. Brittas becomes the Prime Minister. He would have the power to determine whether we should wage a war against XYZ country in the world or not. But you wouldn't have any say in the matter of the appointment of the Chief Justice of India. This is strange logic which I, at least as a student of Constitution, I never understood it.
Since Justice Chelameswar referred to an
When he becomes the Prime Minister.
impossible proposition, I don't want to dwell on that. See, let me also confess, because this is one pillar interacting with another pillar, because the second pillar of Indian democracy is Parliament, and naturally me being immense
Pillar.
yeah,
No more a pillar.
but you're a pillar, of course, for us. So I also, in one of my speeches in Parliament, I did, speak about the collegium, and I said that the only country in the world where the judges appoint judges is in India. But looking back, I feel that I shouldn't have spoken like that. Not because of that. Please don't accuse me of political expediency. But because what I learn about things around me, how the executive functions, how the way in which they try to cripple the institutions, I'm a little worried if there is a say or stake for the executive. Having said that, sir, even in the present dispensation, I don't know what's the form of it, because there is no transparency, as you say. Collegium, we don't know what happens inside that. And you are the one person, because the little bit of homework I did about you, or rather I have learned about you, you are one person who refused to be part of that process unless...
Not knowing what was happening there.
Yeah, he was one person, he was the second senior most judge, but he refused to be part of the process because...
I didn't refuse to be part of it. I refused to participate in the sit-in meetings.
Yeah, without having the deliberations minutes. All right, that's what I
What's the
said.
point in sitting there?
So he wanted some sort of a transparency there. But now, see the talk or the murmuring in the corridors of power now is that now it is give and take, some sort of a barter. If there are 4 vacancies, 2 I will take, that means executive will say I will take, the government will say, and they will say 2 you take. That is what we infer or what we heard.
Well, whether 2 or 1 numbers I am not going to. Do you believe that it was ever different even earlier?
That's a good statement.
Do you believe so? See, one problem with our Indian society is we are too much of idealists. And coupled with, now everybody talks about, sorry, I don't mean any offense, just incidentally I mentioned, talks about corruption by politicians. We want our politicians to be very honest. What is the scale? Our scale is Gandhiji. You wear a iron cloth. Afterwards, you expect every politician to wear a iron cloth and behave accordingly. Well, which is not going to happen. Gandhiji is rarity. Every day you don't get a Gandhiji. Well, there are a lot of politicians whom I know who are otherwise honest, who didn't make dirty money. There are politicians who made dirty money, all of us know that's not the point. Point is, talking about the system, some kind of maneuver is always there in the executive. Now, I can tell you this. Now that the event is over, I can discuss. My idea is not to rake up the...
No, I can,
Just let me complete this.
no, supplement you by saying that your intervention during that Justice K.M. Joseph's episode, there was something which is obviously being referred to by everybody. It's naturally lighting my mind.
It's all right. These things are... No, but point is, in the recent past, there was a little controversy in the news. The Chief Justice of India had invited the Prime Minister for a private function at his residence. A lot of things are said both the sides, mostly against the Chief Justice. But Mr. Brittas, I think, is about 12, 13 years younger than me. How many of the Indian members of the Indian society today remember that Chief Justice Bhagwati was not a Chief Justice as on that date. wrote a congratulatory letter to Mrs. Gandhi when she won the election way back in 1980 after losing power in 1977. Then there was some controversy those days, people raised eyebrows, some little controversy where the people commented. It's not it's happening for the first time, human beings. See, Bhagavati undoubtedly one of those very scholarly chief justices India had. He made great contribution to the march of law in this country. Unless he was a human being, he wrote a congratulatory letter. Then what do you talk about? So therefore, don't think it's happening today. It always happened.
Are you trying to exonerate
I'm not exonerating. I'm only trying.
Chandrajot from his televised Ganesh Puja?
I'm not exonerating anybody. The point is, what do I get out? Ultimately, I'm not looking for a job. Why should I please anybody? That's not the point. Let us understand things in the right perspective. These things happen. How to guard against them? Now, I was a judge for 21 years in this country, starting from 1997 June, ending with 2018. Quite a few of my colleagues, both in the High Court and Supreme Court, were a little doubtful whether they should share a platform with a politician on some occasions. I never had any objection to it. The reason is this. If my chastity is so frail that by sharing a platform with a politician, I lose it, then I won't consider it chastity at all. The point is, what I decide is more important than with whom I am sitting at a public function. Or whose wedding, okay, if I am attending a notorious smugglers party, that's a different story, I am not on that. The same constitution enables Mr. Brittas to become a member of the parliament, which enables me to become a member of the Supreme Court. Now, I may have my own strengths, I may have my own weaknesses. So also any other politician. But we are all in public offices, constitutional offices. Sharing it as with the politician, I never. No, question is afterwards when you go and sit in the court hall, what do you do? How do you decide? What logic are you giving for the judgment? That is more relevant.
Exactly. I do agree with you, sir, because I was thinking how I should disagree with Justice Chelameswar, because on most of the points, we do have agreements. At least I feel so. But on this particular issue, I think that this is a golden opportunity for me to, set my point of difference with Honorable Justice Chelameshwar, because assuming that Justice Chandrachud had a private function, that is Ganesh Puja, where of course is a liberty to invite Prime Minister to anybody. But my point of objection is that at a private function, he invited the cameras to be present there, and what was taken in the camera was televised across the world, and that too by the social handle of the Prime Minister. There lies my objection to what has happened. I don't know what would be your view on that.
I have no objection for it. I am more worried, I would rather examine the judgments rendered by that gentleman and whether those judgments are in accordance with the jurisprudence accepted generally. Afterwards, whether he goes and meets the Prime Minister as President or leader of the... Why? If I raise the question today, what happened to me when I held the press conference, minutes later, one of your first cousins, political cousins, Raja walked into my house. He was passing by. I had known this. See, I was one judge in this country who declared that I have a political affiliation. 1990, this is a practice.
Exactly.
When somebody is invited, there is a column in the form we are supposed to fill up and give it to the Chief Justice. One of the questions is, do you have any political affiliation? I declared I do have a political affiliation. I was a member of the Telugudesam party, so on and so forth. I declared it.
Not only, sir, you dropped the chariot of N.T. Ramarao at that time.
Well, for your information, now it's all over. That chariot never moved out without me. Apart from N.T. Ramarao and his son, I was the third, except the last election when his second wife came. Naturally, it would be a little inconvenient with the lady sitting there, therefore I didn't get into the thing. That chariot never moved. I never hid it because I can't hide it. I could have simply said I have no political affiliation. Everybody in Andhra Pradesh knew it, they would have simply laughed at me. Everybody knew it. What is the point in making the statements? So actually the Chief Justice, when he saw the papers, said, well, nobody is declaring it, why are you declaring? I said, Chief, if I can't be honest today in making this declaration, how am I fit to be a judge? From tomorrow, how will I discharge my functions? That's my answer. I'm not trying to boast about what I did was. The point is, after all this association, how I acquitted myself. I was in that very state for 10 years. And that particular political party was in power for 8 years out of the 10 years I was there. Well, it's for people to assess whether I allowed my old association to interfere with my office. You make an assessment.
I understand, yeah.
Just think.
We had a finance judge in the Supreme Court, Justice V.R. Krishna here. He was a politician, he was a minister at a point of time. That didn't deter him from discharging his function in one of the most glowing way. So coming to another thing, since you refer to the so-called press conference you and your colleagues had, that is one.
So-called, it is a fact.
It's a fact, okay. I was trying to save you or protect yourself a little more because.
Sorry, I didn't complete that part of it.
Yeah.
Then Mr. Raja walked in that day. Because of my political activity and association with NTR, I tell you today, there was a day in my life when I had personally chauffeured late Mr. Vajpayee in Hyderabad. He came to see NTR. They were not in power though, there's BJP was. They didn't even have a car in Hyderabad at that point of time. There was a call to NTR saying that, look here, our leader has come, we have no car. Then I happened to be there with NTR that day. I said, please go and pick up so-and-so is here. I went in personally. That doesn't mean that I was a BJP man or I'm a...
You picked up Vajpayee from the airport?
Not airport.
Yeah.
From the BJP's office in Hyderabad.
BJP's office in Hyderabad.
I picked him up, took him. There are certain things which I don't want to say that would embarrass people who are still sitting in offices. Yeah. I don't want to say. This life, I'm not civilly dead when I become a judge. I have my own associations. Question is whether I am allowing that part of my life to interfere with my
Exactly. No, it's very clear that Justice Chelameswar is very clear that, having association or having an interaction, that shouldn't be, something which should be judged at, but how you perform or discharge your functions. I agree.
One more. Yeah. I have the dubious distinction of suffering one former Prime Minister, Vajpayee Singh. Same story once again. He was in Hyderabad, he was invited for breakfast by NTR. Once again, I said, NTR said, Chelameshwar, go and pick up Vajpayee Singh. He was, as former Prime Minister, he was in the Rajbhavan guest house. I went there, Mr. Jayapal Reddy was sitting there, I picked up both of them, brought them for breakfast.
If there is any media person here, please note that only Justice Chelameswar has the rare distinction of being a chauffeur to two prime ministers in this country. One is A.B. Vajpayee and second is VP Singh.
But both of them were
Nobody else, no other judge in this country will be having something like that. And nobody is going to have also. And coming to that, now the press conference, when I said the so-called press conference, Justice Chelameswar, please bear with me because it was not a full-fledged press conference as it was, being depicted to. But in hindsight, do you think that that press conference was absolutely required there, needed, or should it have been avoided? Because after that, a lot of events unfolded. I remember that you didn't even participate in the farewell organized by the Supreme Court Bar Association, just because, Bar Council, because they had made a statement against your press conference.
I didn't give any reason, I simply said no, that's all.
You simply decided that you will not attend for that farewell. But in hindsight, as somebody or some few people accused you, was that press conference weakening the system, or was that press conference absolutely necessary? Was it a corrective measure? Was it a much wanted gesture from your part? How will you see that?
Right. Insofar as I am concerned, it was necessary. Now, whether it did any good to the system or bad to the system is a matter of opinion. It's for the people of India to decide whether it has done anything good to them. I still believe that we had no choice. Therefore, we tried every possible way of correcting certain things. We failed. That's what I said on that day, even today I stand by it. Then the only thing is the last resort is the people. All of us sit there in those offices, against offices because of you people. People vote in the whole system. So therefore I think people are entitled to know. Therefore we went to the press. In fact, I remember the old long back I read, I think Mountbatten, I went to meet Gandhiji. Then said, because Gandhiji was sitting in a meeting like one of his prayer meetings or something like that. Then after formal exchange of pleasantries, and I think it was Mountbatten, subject to my memory not failing me. He said, Babu, I have come to discuss something very complex. Then Gandhiji asked him, what is that? Some state affair of the state. The question, Gandhiji's question is, whose state is it? Whose state is it? It is the state of these people. So what is so secretive about it? Why can't we discuss it? No, I don't understand this. No, you don't. A lot of criticism was that judges don't hold press conferences when judiciary was confined to decision-making disputes. When you start interfering, rather, when you start exercising authority over everything under the sun, and so many things happen. Where is it in the Constitution that in the matter of transfer of judges?
So your major concern was, when you held that press conference, that was with regard to the administration of the court, concerns with that. But do you think that it did any good for correcting the fundamental errors that happened there, or rather?
See, I told that day, even today, nothing happens.
Nothing happened.
But then it opened up a debate. It opened up a debate, and over a period of time, I am an optimist. Things will fall in order. Maybe I may not be able to see it. I'm already past 70. But at least the youngsters perhaps will see. I'm not so hopeful.
So it's very clear that Justice Chelameswar doesn't have any conviction with regard to that much celebrated in Vetrugama, the press conference he held. But the colleagues of Mr. Chelameswar who attended that press conference didn't do any good to you, actually, because subsequently what happened to them, many of them, the trajectory they chose haven't done any good to the so-called cause which you upheld. I hope you understand whom I am referring to.
You are referring to one.
Yeah.
You are referring to one. Let's say it would be an unpleasant thing to discuss it because of personal. See, the problem is, apart from the press conference, the person to whom you are referring to, I have known him from the days of Wayanad. Long association. Let's not go into it over.
Mr. Chelameswar doesn't want to be drawn into a controversy.
Not a controversy. Personal unpleasant.
And I also don't want to dwell on it because the person whom I am referring to is a colleague of mine in Rajya Sabha. He was his colleague in Supreme Court, now he is my colleague in Rajya Sabha. So I am also having a little reticence about that. I hope you understood the person by this time. Now sir, another aspect. See, I am talking to you as a layman also because when Justice D.Y. Chandrachud was made the Chief Justice, a lot of hopes and I can read the message on your face now. That is marvelous. The common man had a lot of hopes and expectations, naturally. I don't know what happened to Mohan Gopal's thought process, but I'm sure about it. I'm talking about people like that. But a couple of his statements, one incident which we refer to, which you have a position, another, or rather a couple of instances. In the history of the Supreme Court, 70 years of Supreme Court, there was a verdict, that is Ayodhya Verdict, which normally the judge has to sign. There was no sign or name who has actually doled out this judgment. First thing. Second thing, Justice Chandrachud, the Supreme Court Chief Justice, says that he prayed to the deity to find a solution. whereas the deity was a party to the litigation. So as a judge, as a senior judge who presided over many benches, obviously 400 benches in Supreme Court, how do you view these two episodes which have been discussed, which could be seen as a blot on
See, that nobody signed that judgment is a fact. At least. And how do I react? I don't have to give a question. I said when I was asked to give a declaration about my political affiliation, I told you what I did. It's a matter of record. It's a matter of record. When I can only say this, if I were to be on the bench, irrespective of what I would have written, I don't know but I have not known the case, I retired by then. At least I would have signed it, whatever I have written. I would not have.
You would not have.
No.
It's a very bold statement. What could have been the situation if Justice Chelameswar were to be there? He would have signed the judgment.
I would have signed whatever I wrote. That's all.
And with regard to the solution he found for the deity.
I don't want to make it.
Second,
Second thing.
let God save Justice Chandrachud. Is that your refrain which you made?
No, somebody wrote a book saying, God save the Honorable Supreme Court after my first A very great man wrote it.
Anyway, since I represent the second pillar, I feel that judges or the lawmakers should go by the constitution. Your belief or your faith in God or not, that is your personal thing. Whereas you are a citizen, when you are discharging your function as a functionary of the state or representing one pillar, it should be the constitution which should be the guiding light for you. Anyway, and sir, there are a lot of jokes around judges delivering their judgment according to their post-retirement pause. So, the connect between the judgments and the post-retirement assignments. Even the law minister, Arun Jaitley, at a point of time, had sarcastically commented about that. And you are one judge who said that you will not pick up any government post or government.
And it's 7 years so far. I have not accepted any government post.
I think he deserves a post.
As of today, I have not accepted 7 years. Anyway, go ahead.
What would be your idea about the judges having cooling in period like 2 years, 3 years like that?
See, what happens? Okay, 3 years, then of course they'll come back.
They will come back.
Point is, no, actually there's something more serious. You are talking about somebody making a statement, I don't know whom you had in mind. You were discussing the intro, somebody made a...
Gadkari had made a statement like that. You need to have 2 years of mandatory cooling in period.
You are talking about post-retirement.
Post-retirement, yeah.
Who's it that you had in mind?
A lot of people actually, everybody, most.
You are talking about a law minister. Which law minister?
Arun Jaitley.
Huh?
Arun Jaitley. Arun Jaitley.
Arun Jaitley.
Yeah.
What did he do in the cabinet? How many appointments were made when he was in the cabinet? Why did he not raise his voice and speak? This double talk. I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend you. Politicians equally resort to this kind of a double talk. You talking one time when you are in opposition, you talk in another time when you are in power.
Sir, I am glad that I instigated you to speak against Arun Jaitley. I am glad that I instigated you to speak against Arun Jaitley's statements. I should be happy about that.
Be happy about
You questioned the
See,
hypocrisy.
one day is, everybody makes these statements. Please remember the day a court, the highest court of the country, in a democratic society with a written constitution, is invested with the authority to review judicially the legislative and administrative action, that institution is bound to necessarily engage with politics. Necessarily. Because ultimately, what is it that the judicial review is happening? The legislators, the elected members of the legislature, state or parliament, make an assessment what is right for the society, whether a particular law is required to be made or not made. They make an assessment. And that legislation, once again, is tested in the court, constitutional court, on the touchstone of the constitutional provisions. The same job, one side is an elected set of people, the other side judges or appointed people. It's bound to be a political institution. Question is, are there some basic norms in accordance with judges are required to conduct this office? One norm universally approved thing is that whatever, when a law is made, the parliament or legislature does not give in with the objects and reasons for broadly something is indicated. Individual members don't give their own reasons of why they are voting for this and why they are not voting for that. But a judge saying this is wrong or this is right is expected. How many of them are doing, how many of them are giving clear reasons, there is a different story, make an audit. But it is expected in theory that every decision of the judicial body must be supported by valid logic. Logic which is in tune with certain settled jurisprudential principles. Bother more about it. If a judgment does not contain that logic, does not have that jurisprudential foundation, handle that judgment, handle that judge, find devise ways to handle such judges. The general talk so and so went to so and so, he had coffee, he had drink, this is not me.
Fully appreciate that. And coming to the politics, obviously, I mean, he has actually made his statement very clear that there is nothing, no harm in having a political orientation or a previous episode of politics, because we are all citizens, we are all human beings, and the meaning of politics is to be concerned about the society. That's the essence of politics. Having said that, partisan politics, which is so blatant, there are episodes where a judge speaks in high volume about an organization, quits his job, joins a political party, on third day contests on a ticket and comes to Lok Sabha. There is another judge of Allahabad High Court, Shekhar Yadav. He attends a cultural organizations meeting. I will tell you one thing, anything concerning BJP's fountainheads is cultural now, nothing political about it. I don't know where is the culture there. But he makes inflammable statements. So do you think, the system is getting loosened, the values are getting eroded? Do you appreciate these sort of things in the name of having a political awareness or a political context to it? The politics which you talked and the politics which I referred to, are they same or are diametrically opposite? How do you view it?
Certainly not. Certainly not. See, I may have my own political preferences, but once I sat in the chair as a judge for those 21 years, I believe, subject to any contrary opinion from the public, I never believed that my political affiliations or past affiliations to interfere with my decision-making process, and I was conscious of it. And I believe that is the right way to do it. If somebody is not following it, I will certainly not agree that the right way to do it. The right way is to keep it away. You may have your own political beliefs. All right.
Sir, few of the judgments which have come recently, or the comments from the judges, have created raging controversy in the society. These are all raised in the parliament also. We have another 10 more minutes, but this is a question which I think I should definitely underline. Justice Chandrachud and his colleagues in 2019 judgment say that Place of Worship Act is part of the structure of the Constitution and it should be respected. The same judge subsequently in 2022 says that just surveying or digging up a place of worship is not prevented by the Place of Worship Act of 1990, and which has unleashed a mayhem. Now there is a litigation of at least 11 places disputes there, and it has created riots in many places. How do you as a judge, how do you view this incident? A judge, part of a bench, constitution bench, says that Place of Worship Act is sacrosanct, and the same judge says that judgment doesn't prevent anybody from digging up or doing a survey.
Mr. Brittas, you keep talking about...
Sir, am I embarrassing you?
No. At least that's one of my weaknesses.
Yeah.
Now, you've been been referring to one particular individual's name, but I don't think it's worth spending so much of time on that name.
That's $1 million comment from Justice Chelameswar. It is not worth to mention on and often about that individual. I have not seen any powerful statement as such made against such a judge so far. So coming to this, couple of things about, we talked about the cooling period, but does this system, this format encourage any people, question from anybody? So we have 5 minutes time. If anybody wants to have, Mr. Mohan Gopal, who is the theoretician with regard to the constitutional judges and the theocratic judges.
I just want to, one of the points on which you disagree, the two of you, I just want to read out the first statement of the restatement of values of judicial life adopted by the Supreme Court of India. It says, justice must not merely be done, but it must also be seen to be done. The behavior and conduct of members of the higher judiciary must reaffirm the people's faith in the impartiality of the judiciary. Accordingly, any act of a judge of the Supreme Court or a High Court, whether in official or personal capacity, which erodes the credibility of this perception of the public, must be avoided. So clearly, in my view, asking the Prime Minister to come, recording it on television, publicizing it is a clear violation of the first principle of the restatement of judicial values of the Supreme Court of India. And I think, for me, that's very clear that he should have avoided it. I think number 6 or 7 of the restatement values also says a degree of aloofness must be maintained. Aloofness must be maintained. So clearly, Justice Chelameswar has violated the restatement of values of the Supreme Court of which he was the head. That's all I wanted to say to express my thoughts on this matter.
I never knew that Justice Chelameswar has this many fans here. I can take 1 or 2 questions more, that's all. Anybody wants to ask a question to Justice Chelameshwar, please. We are running out of time, only 4 or 5 minutes more, please. Please be brief, okay?
So just out of curiosity, going back in time, if NTR had offered you a ministerial post, then...
Don't say Prime Minister's post because he has,
No,
he has already reserved that seat for me.
Would you have accepted it? Would you have accepted it then, yes, as a young man who's...
Perhaps I would have accepted.
Okay, that's it. Thank you, sir.
I think a former judge is much more honest than a serving judge. Okay. No, he doesn't have any chains. He can speak. That's it. Yeah.
Sir, there was a chief minister who was penalized for contempt of court some 50 years back. And he made a public observation that some majority of the less privileged people are discriminated in our legal system. So do you think that situation has changed now?
You mean to say in hindsight, was it correct on the part of the court to punish him, put a penalty on him, right?
Incidentally, that chief minister belonged to this state only.
He was punished for contempt, whether it was really necessary or not is a different matter. I for one never believed that punishing somebody for criminal contempt. Civil contempt is different. When an order of the court is flouted, to get the order enforced, the civil contempt proceedings are initiated. That is essential for the system to function. Criminal contempt is something which was always skipped. I never found anybody guilty of criminal contempt in my tenure of 21 years. Criminal contempt I never used. A lot of things are said about me personally at various points of time in different courts. But point is, It was a view of one thing. Mr. Namboodiripad, obviously you are referring to his name, you know the secret about it. It was his belief that the system is prejudiced about certain classes of people. Well, whether the degree of prejudice continues to be the same or not, I can't right away say. Maybe it requires a more extensive analysis. But some amount of political preferences still exist in the political. I am not talking about party politics. When you talk about, I am talking about politics. I am not talking about party politics in this matter. Priorities, whether you are a leftist or a rightist, you are a socialist or a capitalist. This kind of a thing is inevitable and it still continues. In any system, anywhere, even the most so-called mature democracies, these things exist. And I don't think Namboodiripada's statement is totally redundant even today. It still exists to some extent.
That's a very clear-cut response. Now I think we need to wind up. One more question, please give the mic below. In the meantime, sir, I would just ask you one more question, last question from my side. See, the Supreme Court sitting on cases for years together. There have been numerous cases like demonetization case. It sat over it for almost 7 years. Then there are cases like abrogation of 370. On a fine day, a state was converted as a union territory. And the Supreme Court went by the assurance of a Solicitor General who is not even a constitutional functionary. How do you view as a judge who would have, seen through many things, these incidents? How does it trouble you? Does it trouble you as a jurist?
Yeah, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Yeah, I'll tell you one, okay, I'll put a counter question.
Yes, sir.
Talking about delays, lost delays, Supreme Court sitting on that matter, this matter, to my knowledge, once again, don't get personally angry with me.
No, I'll be very happy if you ask me for
Personal knowledge, to my knowledge, at least some 30, 40 very senior level politicians are facing criminal cases in this country. And quite a few of them are pending in the Supreme Court. Supreme Court can easily constitute a special bench to deal with and get them disposed of. Nothing is happening. I don't have to give the names, you know who are all involved in it. You are a member of the parliament. Why don't you raise this question in the parliament? Why is the Supreme Court not?
I'm glad that, I have been given a cue, and naturally I would raise it in the parliament.
Please.
Because I would be happy to, back on that. These are all issues which I need to, take it up. And I should say that much of my critique towards parliament members come from me. Because whether I am part of the parliament or not, that doesn't absolve my responsibility of being a critic of what's happening there. The last question there. Yes.
To conclude, Mr. Brittas, why can't you initiate a private bill in the parliament, in the Rajya Sabha, in the line that no judges after retirement should give a post of income?
It will fail. 1 to 250 it will fail.
Of course it will fail, but as a man of say such a capacity, why can't you initiate a
It's a
private
question.
bill?
I'll tell you one thing. There are numerous private members' bills which are there. I myself have introduced a couple of private members' bills which talked about, barring a, judge who is retired from taking up another post. And
Complete.
yeah. So, see, the private members' bill you can introduce. This is much for an optics or academic purpose. But the government, unless the government agrees to, back for it, it will never take off. Anyway, the suggestion is.
I just add a little this thing.
പുതുമകളും വൈവിധ്യങ്ങളുമായി
Now I think
വയനാട് ലിറ്ററേച്ചർ ഫെസ്റ്റ്
they want to wind up the
അതിന്റെ
session.
മൂന്നാമത്തെ
One
ദിനം
one.
സായം സന്ധ്യയിലേക്ക് കടന്നിരിക്കുകയാണ്.
Just
Last.
one statement.
We'll have the concluding remarks from Justice Chelameshwar.
See, my late friend Sitaram Yechuri is also from Andhra Pradesh. I have known the family for three
മുഴുവൻ സഹൃദയർ
generations. He moved a private member bill long back. He toyed with the idea of moving it to put the CBI on a statutory basis. And one of the ministers at that point of time called him and reprimanded him. What you are doing? You're not doing the right thing. Don't do this. This is what happens. Anyway, I don't want to make any further statement.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chelameshwar. It has been my honor to have been host you here, and thank you very much.